In Woodsboro, Scott and his girlfriend Madison arrive at an infamous house. Many years ago, a series of murders happened there, and now it's become an attraction. People can rent it to spend the weekend and admire the decorations that represent the crimes. Scott is a big fan, so he's taking dozens of photos, but Madison is bored. They split when she goes to the bathroom. Minutes later, Madison comes out and can't find Scott. She searches every room and turns on the lights, only to be startled by the legendary killer Ghostface. She screams and runs until she bumps into Scott. After she tells him what happened, Scott goes into the room and finds Ghostface, but he's just a doll with a motion sensor. Nearby there's a small memorial shrine for Stu, one of the men behind the original Ghostface. He was killed by a television thrown on his head, but some people theorize he's still alive. Then the house phone rings and Scott rushes to pick it up, since this is also part of the experience. He answers a bunch of horror questions, but hangs up when he gets one wrong. After Scott goes to the bathroom, Madison gets a call on her cell phone. A creepy voice tells her she's going to die, and she plays along because she thinks it's part of the game. When the voice insults her, she complains and the call ends. Then Madison hears a noise, so she goes to the other room to check, causing the Ghostface doll to move again. This time it's saying different things, so Madison takes a closer look and moves her hand to check on the motion sensor. Then she hits the mask and insults it. When she turns around, she's startled to see Ghostface, causing her to scream and punch him. However, this is Scott trying to prank her. At that moment Scott notices that the doll has moved differently. When he comes closer, Ghostface reveals he's real and jumps on Scott to stab him multiple times. After Scott drops dead, Madison throws a decoration at the attacker and runs away. Ghostface takes a shortcut through another room to appear in front of her and knocks down the table to come closer, grabbing her by the hair before throwing her on the stairs. Madison tries to crawl away, but Ghostface grabs her leg to drag her down and hits her head on the railing. After some struggle, Madison manages to free herself and runs upstairs to rip a lamp off the wall, which she then uses to hit Ghostface. She tries to run after kicking him, but soon he's attacking her again. As she tries to defend herself, she kicks the wall and manages to push them both over the railing. Madison holds onto the lamp, but Ghostface falls. By making the lamp swing, Madison puts her legs over the railing, only to slip and fall too. Ghostface waits with his knife up and she lands on top of it, getting stabbed in the stomach. Barely conscious, Madison watches Ghostface set the house on fire. He then throws gas on her and lights her up too before leaving. In Pine Grove, Tatum is busy on her phone when she suddenly hears a noise. She looks out the window and is startled by a presence, but it's her boyfriend Ben. The couple falls on the bed to get naughty, only to be interrupted by a knock on the door. Tatum throws Ben off before her mother Sydney comes inside. She immediately sees Ben failing to hide and kicks him out. Then Tatum argues with Sydney because she's overprotective. Sydney is a survivor of Ghostface's killing spree and wants her daughter to learn from her mistakes, but Tatum just thinks her mother is a hypocrite. Then Sydney turns on the alarm system and goes to her room to get naughty with her husband Mark. The next morning Mark checks on the construction happening in his garage before work. Meanwhile Sydney goes to her cafe and prepares an order for Lucas, who mentions a documentary he saw about Ghostface last night and asks Sydney to be on his podcast. He's interrupted by his mother Jessica, who apologizes for her son's behavior. Then Sydney makes an order for Carl, who looks extremely creepy and doesn't say a word. During her break, Sydney asks Jessica for advice on how to handle a teenager. Jessica points out that it's a dangerous world and their kids need to learn to protect themselves. She also shares that her husband was abusive, so she left him and now she's raising Lucas alone. At school, Tatum has to wear a dog costume for the play rehearsal. She trips and falls when she gets on the stage, accidentally pushing the main actress Hannah, who is currently hanging from the ceiling. Aaron is in control of her harness and tries to stabilize her, but he ends up getting her stuck on the set. Mr. George tells Hannah that she and Aaron need to practice more with the harness. Then he tells Tatum to bring more strength into her role and asks her to channel her mother's fire. In the cafe, Sydney gets a call from a creepy voice who claims to be Ghostface. She thinks it's just a prank and records the call to report him later. The voice assures her this is real and starts a video call. To Sydney's shock, Stu's deformed face appears. He knows about her daughter and moves the camera to reveal he's outside the school, saying he's about to strike. Sydney gets in her car and rushes toward the school while calling her husband, who is also the police chief. At school, Hannah and Aaron keep practicing with the harness on the stage. However, Aaron is distracted by some noises. After a few minutes, Hannah gets nervous because Aaron isn't answering anymore. Suddenly the lights go out and only a very bright one is focused on her. Then the harness starts acting crazy, throwing Hannah all over the place. As she screams for help, Ghostface appears on the stage and watches Hannah swing. Whenever she's close enough, Ghostface slashes her with a knife. For his last move, Ghostface raises his knife and lets her swing on it to cut her torso open, instantly killing her. Then Sydney arrives and insults Ghostface before she opens fire. He runs away, so Sydney tries to follow him while the cops rush to the exits. Backstage, Sydney finds Aaron's body and yells her daughter's name, worried that she may be dead too. At that moment Tatum appears behind her and Sydney hugs her, moving her away so she won't see the bodies. Afterward, the police question George and all the members of the theater club. Mark says the killer is someone who knows his way around here and can't be Stu because he's dead. The killer most likely used deepfake technology, so the police lab will analyze the recording of the video call. Sydney then takes her daughter home but doesn't let Ben come, which annoys Tatum. At the house, the police check every window and door before letting the family enter. However, they don't check the attic, so after the cops leave, Ghostface jumps out of it. In the bedroom, Sydney starts packing their things so they can move, and Tatum complains since she doesn't want to abandon her friends. When Sydney goes to her own bedroom, she asks Mark why he turned off the lights, but he says he didn't. Suddenly another light goes out, so the couple goes looking for the daughter, only to discover that she's become Ghostface's hostage. When Mark puts his gun down, Ghostface kicks it away. Then Mark tells Tatum to move and jumps to knock Ghostface down. The men start fighting and Ghostface manages to slash Mark's arm before they struggle over the gun, accidentally firing it at the wall. When the knife is dropped, Sydney kicks it toward Mark before she starts beating up Ghostface. Mark tries to take over the fight, only for Ghostface to push him down the stairs. Since Mark is now unconscious, Sydney and Tatum run to the bedroom. Sydney moves her shoe rack to reveal a hidden panic room behind it. When Ghostface tries to follow them, Sydney knocks him down with a bat and closes the door. Ghostface starts pounding on it, but it's very thick steel and it won't even budge. Then Sydney shows Tatum that there's a secret passage in the panic room, so they start crossing it to try to rescue Mark. Ghostface realizes he can't open the door and is about to leave when he hears noises behind the walls. The women freeze and stay silent as Ghostface starts tapping the wall and eventually stabs it. They both scream and try to move as quickly as possible as Ghostface keeps stabbing the wall over and over. When the knife lands close to Sydney, she hits it with the bat, bending it to get it stuck. However, Ghostface gets a fire poker and keeps trying, slashing Sydney's arm in the process. While the women reach the end of the tunnel, Ghostface looks for Mark near the stairs, but the body is gone. As the duo comes out of the house, Mark tackles Ghostface from behind and they start fighting again in the front yard. Sydney breaks a birdhouse on Ghostface's back and Mark sends him rolling down the yard. Ghostface ends up in the middle of the street and he's run over by a car that instantly kills him. This car is being driven by Gail, another survivor from previous Ghostface massacres. She's a journalist and her assistants are twins Mindy and Chad. They're also Ghostface survivors and related to a previous victim. After Gail reunites with Sydney, it's finally time to reveal Ghostface's identity. A cop removes the mask, but nobody knows who this guy is. Sydney recognizes him as Carl from the coffee shop, but she doesn't know anything about him. This is strange since Ghostface is usually someone close to the victims. After the police close the area, they search for information on Carl and discover he escaped from the psychiatric hospital 2 weeks ago. He had been locked up for a triple murder. Sydney still thinks this was too easy and points out that there are always two people behind Ghostface. When she looks at the curious crowd forming around the police tape, she notices George and Ben. As the family returns to the house, they're approached by their neighbors Lucas and Jessica, who want to offer their sympathies. Gail gets suspicious of Lucas because he has so much interest in true crime and the Ghostface cases, so Jessica defends her son and tells Gail to back off. While having some coffee, Gail explains to Sydney that she came to town after hearing about the murders in the Woodsboro house. At that moment, she receives another video call from Stu, who is delighted to see Gail and promises to kill them both. After Stu hangs up, Sydney realizes this won't stop until they do something, so she agrees to help Gail investigate. The next day, Sydney and Gail get a call from the police explaining that there's no intake from Stu's body in the system. The coroner from that year has already died, so they don't have anyone to ask either. Sydney theorizes someone stole the paperwork to make it look like the body never reached the morgue. In the psychiatric hospital, the duo talks to Supervisor Marco and convince him to show them Carl's room with the excuse of covering the story for TV. Marco explains that the police searched the room last night and that Carl was a very violent man. They find very creepy drawings on Carl's wall, but Marco says he never heard Carl show interest in Sydney or the Ghostface stories. Then Sydney shows him a screenshot of Stu's call and Marco immediately recognizes him as a nameless patient who arrived at the hospital 16 years ago. He was amnesiac because of a blow to the head and attacked a girl while wandering the streets. Justice declared him incompetent and sent him to the hospital, but he was released 2 days ago. Marco also confirms that Stu was a very close friend of Carl's. Afterward, Sydney gets another call from the police, informing her that they've set everything up to track Stu whenever he calls again. Gail doesn't want to wait and says there should bait him, so Sydney agrees to appear on her show. Back in the house, Mindy notices that Lucas is working on his yard but keeps glancing at Sydney's place, which she finds suspicious. Chad checks the security cameras but can't find the moment Ghostface sneaked in, so he guesses the footage was hacked. Tatum asks the twins why they came back after all they went through, so they explain it's their duty. She sees their point and wants to help too. Moments later, Mark hears noises in the construction area and goes to investigate. He finds some tools on the floor and picks them up, unaware that Ghostface is lurking behind him. After closing the garage door, Mark turns off the lights and Ghostface takes the chance to attack him. He wraps Mark in a plastic curtain and stabs him multiple times. In the evening, the twins make Tatum gather her close friends at a bar to discuss theories. Tatum also gives Ben a copy of Stu's call that she found in Sydney's cloud. Ben analyzes the face but can't find any inconsistencies, so if it's a fake it's a very good one. Then Mindy starts searching for a motive for murder among Tatum's friends. Ben's angry that Sydney doesn't approve of him, Lucas is obsessed with the ghost face case, and Chloe dislikes boredom. All of them deny being the killer. Meanwhile, Gail's show begins and she interviews Sydney so she can share with the public what has been happening. The kids watch the show at the bar. Sydney asks the killer to call her because she wants to know what he wants, and Gail tries to provoke him by calling him a chicken, but the call never comes. The interview continues and Gail asks Sydney about her family. Sydney refuses to talk about her kid but Gail keeps poking, wondering if Sydney is afraid of passing her trauma to Tatum. Sydney gets annoyed and walks away, so Gail has to cut the show short. Afterward, Gail tells Sydney that this was unfair. Sydney wonders what her friend would have done if she had asked invasive questions, so Gail swears she's fine. However, she keeps taking medicine for her state of mind. In the bar, Tatum says she wants to be with her mother so Ben agrees to drive her to the station. After the transmission ends, Sydney finally gets a call from Stu, who tells her he's at the bar with her daughter. Sydney says it's impossible, so Stu explains that Tatum sneaked out, which explains the open garage door. Gail tells her team to call the police while Sydney runs out of the building. She also keeps calling Mark to no avail. Outside the bar, Tatum gets in Ben's car and finds his computer. To her shock, she finds a software he's been using to create Stu's deepfake on top of his own face. Ben says he was only playing around with it, but Tatum doesn't believe him, so she hits him with a laptop and gets out of the car. Unfortunately, Ghostface is already waiting for her, so she runs in the opposite direction. In the bar, Chad and Mindy realize they shouldn't have left Tatum alone, so they try to go after her. Since the front door is locked, they go looking for another exit. In the kitchen, Chloe is getting rid of a burned pizza when suddenly the lights go out. When she turns around, she sees Ghostface, so she tries to run, but he keeps blocking her way. Chloe then grabs a kitchen mace and tries to defend herself, but Ghostface keeps throwing her around and smashing her on the furniture. The knife falls in the struggle, so Chloe picks it up. When she senses someone near her, she immediately attacks, only to discover she stabbed Chad. Ghostface appears behind him and takes his knife back before dropping him. Then Mindy tries to attack Ghostface, so he slashes her stomach and she collapses too. Chloe hits Ghostface to distract him and runs back into the bar, where she tries to tell Lucas to run. However, Lucas enters the kitchen anyway. After a few seconds of silence, a bleeding Lucas is pushed out. Chloe hears Ghostface coming, so she hides behind the bar and somehow Ghostface doesn't see her when he peeks. Then the door can be heard opening and closing, so Chloe decides to come out. However, this is a trap and Ghostface quickly catches her. He pounds her head on the bar before pushing her body into a pile of glasses. The shards easily slash her to death. Lucas tries to crawl away, but Ghostface drags him back and impales him on the beer tap, causing him to puke alcohol mixed with blood. At the same time, Tatum stops running to catch her breath, only to discover that Ghostface is nearby. She tries to go to the nearest store, but the door is locked and nobody answers her yelling. Then she grabs a sign and waits until Ghostface comes to hit him. She keeps running down the street asking for help, however nobody comes out, so she hides behind a florist's kiosk. While keeping an eye on Ghostface, Tatum is startled by something behind her, but it's just Ben. He insists he isn't the killer and Tatum apologizes, assuring him that she knows better now. The sweet moment is interrupted by Ghostface attacking Ben from behind. Ben fails to defend himself and Ghostface stabs him multiple times. A furious Tatum pushes Ghostface into a store, breaking the window. Then she checks on Ben, but he's already dead. She has no choice but to keep running and makes it to her mom's cafe. Since she knows the lock's password, she manages to hide inside. This sends an alert to Sydney's phone. When Ghostface arrives at the cafe, he finds the door locked and decides to leave. However, he freezes when he hears Tatum's phone. She quickly cancels the call and waits until Ghostface is gone to send Sydney a text explaining what's happening. Sydney tells her that there's a gun in the office, so Tatum comes out of hiding. At that moment, Ghostface returns with the password and opens the door to chase Tatum. She rushes to the office and blocks the door with the furniture. Sydney sees it all on the security camera and calls her daughter to tell her the safe code. Once Tatum takes the gun out, Sydney teaches her how to turn the safety off. When Tatum starts having a breakdown, Sydney gives her a speech about survival and says she takes after her. As soon as Ghostface walks away from the door, Sydney tells Tatum to shoot at the wall. The bullets go through and finally bring Ghostface down. Tatum comes out and Sydney tells her to shoot him in the head to be extra sure, but Ghostface reacts faster and starts fighting Tatum for the gun before throwing her at a table. Tatum grabs a fire extinguisher and hits Ghostface in the head to knock him down again, but when she tries to run away, he grabs her leg to make her fall. A desperate Tatum hits him with a couple of chairs and brings him down on a table. Now Tatum can finally leave, however she's shocked to find another Ghostface at the door. Both killers jump at the same time to surround her as she screams. Minutes later, Sydney arrives at the cafe and only finds the gun. She then gets a call from Ghostface, who says he won't kill Tatum until Sydney is at home to see it. Sydney runs back to her house and finds all the screens playing clips of Stu. He confirms he isn't real and his face starts changing into previous victims and other killers who also use the ghost face mask. Eventually Sydney finds Tatum tied to a chair in the backyard with ghost face, who takes off his mask to reveal he's Marco. He also calls Stu by name and the other ghost face appears behind him. Marco then brings Mark from the garage and kicks him to confirm he's still alive. The other ghost face decides to take off the mask too and Sydney is shocked to see Jessica. Marco confirms that Stu is still dead and explains that he used to work as a Google security specialist, so he has lots of computer knowledge. Sydney begs for mercy and Jessica mocks her, saying this isn't like her. Many years ago, Jessica lived a very miserable life with her abusive husband until she read Sydney's biography. This inspired her to get rid of the bad guys, so she killed her husband and let Lucas think he abandoned them. While she talks, Mark slowly brings out a knife from his pocket. Jessica gets angry as she continues her speech, saying Sydney disappointed her. Since Sydney disappeared from the public eye, she wasn't part of Ghostface's attacks in New York, and Jessica thinks there can't be a Ghostface story without her. Seeing her hero hide instead of fight made Jessica have such a breakdown that she checked herself into the psychiatric hospital, where she met Marco and Carl. While Mark carefully cuts the tape on his daughter's ankles, Jessica says she'll make Tatum watch her mother die like Sydney did to keep up the cycle. Sydney notices what her husband has been doing and nods as a signal, so Tatum headbutts Jessica and Sydney shoots Marco in the head. Tatum also breaks the chair on Jessica, who pushes her off before running away. Sydney follows Jessica into the construction area and finds an abandoned ghost face costume. Jessica whispers Sydney's name before turning on a very loud radio. When Sydney goes to turn it off, Jessica tackles her and the women start fighting on the floor. Sydney stabs Jessica's leg with a screwdriver and Jessica responds by trying to choke her with a cable. The closeness allows Sydney to retrieve the screwdriver and stabs Jessica several times before she pushes her off. When Jessica counterattacks, Tatum appears to shoot her down. Tatum then helps her mother up, only to turn around and find Jessica gone. In just a few seconds, Jessica tries attacking again, so mother and daughter shoot her together, this time killing her for good. Afterward the police and reporters surround the house. The twins are wounded but alive, so Gail wants them to work anyway. After an ambulance takes Mark away, Sydney apologizes to Gail for not being with her in New York and they reconcile with a hug. Then Sydney chats with Tatum and finally opens up about what happened to her, explaining she named her daughter after her late best friend because of how strong she was. After sharing a hug and words of love, they leave together for the hospital. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.